Thanks very much for the invitation to take part. I mean, I just want to focus on the issues related to journalism and free speech, and I don't disagree with a lot of what's been said, but I think that the damage that is being done to notions of democracy, justice, and human rights is not just damage being done in Israel and the Middle East. It's being damaged that's having a global effect. And the fact of the matter is that the latest events in the West Bank are a shocking reminder to journalists that independent reporting of this conflict, truth telling about what's really going on, has in fact, both in Gaza and now the West Bank, been effectively outlawed, first by Israel and now by the Palestinian Authority. The action of the Palestinian Authority, and this picks up a point that's just been made by Malik, it seems to me smacks of desperation. It's a desperate attempt in the few days that are left before the Trump administration takes over to try to claim some legitimate ground to play a part in the administration of Gaza in the post-war phase that we're in. And I think that this is a fool's paradise in which the PA find themselves. Israel have effectively ruled this out of order, and there's no sort of question that that will happen. But what they have done and the damage that they have done by targeting media and tragically by adding to the long list of journalists who've been killed over the past months, will do terrible damage to everyone. And it's clear that the fact that Al Jazeera has paid a terrible price for its attempts to report professionally and independently. You've got to remember, Al Jazeera is the only international network that has reported extensively, exhaustively, and painstakingly about this conflict from the very beginning, and has paid a terrible price with the loss of its own people who've been targeted and killed by the Israeli forces. And the fact that Al Jazeera have been once again targeted is no surprise at all. It's happened without any evidence at all of the incitement that they're supposed to have taken part in. This is a simple and straightforward prejudice against a group of journalists who are trying to tell the truth and trying to tell the world the whole story about what has been going on. So far, we all know around 150 journalists have been killed since this conflict began. Many of them have been specifically targeted and assassinated in a very brutal way. Already, we have a number of specific actions being taken to the international courts, which in detail give evidence of how Israel has committed war crimes and broken international humanitarian law. And the fact that it's happening with the Palestinian Authority, I find particularly sad. I've been to the region many times in the last 30 years representing journalists. I've dealt with the PA leaderships many times on the issues of the rights of journalists and the freedom of media, and they have consistently, time and again, reinforce their commitment to democratic values, to free speech, free expression, the right of journalists to work freely. And in just a few days, they have completely destroyed that tradition of attachment to democracy and the values of free speech. All of this is bad enough. All of these losses are bad enough. But the silence of the international community, the silence of the international democratic community, and particularly as Israel's allies in the face of all of these attacks on the lives of journalists, their families, on democracy and the rule of law, and on free speech, is absolutely appalling. When the world's democracies say nothing and stand aside, it appears that attacking journalists, targeting independent media, ignoring international law can be done with impunity. So it's no wonder, actually, that the PA feel the PA feel they have the freedom to suspend their traditional attachment to democratic values and try to use this poisonous atmosphere to their own political advantage. Naive, it is. Futile, it is. But it comes at a terrible price, because in the process, unfortunately, they're not just sacrificing hopes for a truly democratic future for Palestine and its media community, they are dealing a severe and damaging blow to the international regime of respect for democracy and international law and human rights. So the question comes up, where do we go from here? Where we go from here, it seems to me, is to recognize that there is a massive political struggle that must be fought, not just in the Middle East, but much more in Washington, in London, in Paris, in the capital cities of the Western democratic world, to get them back on track, to get them to recognize what losses are being sustained for the future of democracy at this moment. And above all, to commit again to the notion that freedom of the press, free speech, the right of journalists to do their work without intimidation and without threats is absolutely a fundamental part of the future. And it must be a future for all of us. And above all, it must be the future for Palestine and the Palestinian people as well.